yourself a suit and tie and get your hair cut way up high. Get yourself a lawyer, son. You're gonna need a real good one.
Better get a real good one. David Whiting's a real good one. Melbourne solicitor. He's here to dispense free legal advice. The phones have already lit up. As you often predict, David, that's what happens. 1300 222 774. There are a couple of spots left on the board, so get in now if you are keen. 1300 222 774. And David, I'm delighted to say that you had homework.
I had two lots of homework, Waleed.
Yes.
The first one was Paul from Drysdale. Paul was concerned about the a tree, a 100-year-old tree over 100 years in one of the major streets in Drysdale. And as I went back and looked again at the call, I see that part of the issue was that the property outside the tree, which the tree was outside, had concreted their apron at the front of their property. And as a result, an area of 20 by 30 metres was now covered in concrete. That would have affected the water source for the plant. That would have been a significant impact. And there's nothing that you can do about that. There's nothing to prevent you concreting your forecourt. And the other question was, what about putting it on the National Trust Historic Trees Register? The answer would be that National Trust is a private organisation which acts to influence government policy but doesn't make government policy. So there might be, if you were able to get it on their tree register, then you would have hopefully some more pull at council, but it wouldn't, I don't think it's likely to change anything.
So it has no legal consequence?
No, none at all.
It's more just a cultural symbol of some sort?
Yes, but also the National Trust agitates significantly for the preservation of items that they think are important to record. And there's only something like 2,000 trees in Australia that are on their historic tree register.
So,
yes.
Is that because people don't bring enough trees to their attention, or because their standards are quite exacting?
I imagine it's more that there aren't enough brought to their attention. And of course then there's the, having brought it to my attention, I've now actually got to go and make my own assessment as to whether it meets my standards before I put it on the register. Right. So there will be lots of applications to put things on the register, but they don't actually make it. And
even then, not a silver bullet, so to speak.
No.
Yes.
And the other one was Stephen from Rockbank.
Yep, I love this one.
Stephen's son got a ticket.
Yep.
The police officer who gave the son the ticket put the wrong amount of the fine on it. They've paid the fine, and the police have now issued a new ticket with a new amount of money, and clearly they'll get credit for the amount that's already been paid, but do they have to pay the difference? And the answer is yes. The ticket the police will technically have withdrawn the old ticket and given a new one, and the fine is payable in respect of the new one. So treat the wit that's paid as a part payment, and I know that because a client of mine got a .05 tickets that resulted in them being unable to drive. And some 3 months after the ticket was issued, the police officer cancelled the ticket and issued a new one. What then happens to the time when the driver hadn't been driving as a result of getting the first ticket? The answer is tough.
Oh.
Right. So, you've got a ticket that requires you to get off the road within a period of time and then stay off the road. If during the period the fine is withdrawn and a new one issued, I'm sorry, your suspension period starts again.
You don't get credit for subsequent suspensions?
No.
That'd be a good
system. Or prior suspensions. Yes, it might be. It doesn't work that way.
You can't get a credit for prior suspensions, can you? You've already served it.
No. Yes, but in this particular case there was 60 or 90 days off the road, then the ticket was cancelled, a new one issued, no credit for the time.
It's just not fair. But there's no course on justice in the legal system.
I'm glad you've learnt something from last week.
Gee, what a slap.
Yeah.
I don't know if I needed that. Monica from Thomastown, save me, please. You've called in. What would you like to ask, David?
I've just got a quick question about divorce papers. I've been served with divorce papers, and on the first page, where it says family name as used now, it's been filled in with my maiden name.
Yes.
I use my married name, and I intend to use my married name forever.
Yes.
I'm just wanting to double check. I'm thinking because it's on the first page, it doesn't matter so much. It's just saying who the parties are.
I would
that
be,
correct?
if you're lodging some documents in response to that, I would be writing to the registry and say that you intend to continue to use that name, and so you would use the surname that you prefer to use in whatever you file hereafter.
Do I need to respond to those papers? I was told that I didn't need to do anything.
No, you don't need to do anything, but you might choose to write to the registry and to your husband's lawyer saying that you're not giving up the use of your married name. But I wouldn't be you don't need to do anything else. But if there are subsequent proceedings, say property proceedings or children proceedings, you might ask that the heading of the action be changed. But otherwise, you don't need to. You don't have to be Miss Jones. You can be Mrs. Smith or Ms. Smith for as long as you like.
Yeah, and I don't have to tell them that either. I can just continue to use that.
You don't.
Yeah, I have. There are no other proceedings. That's all been sorted out years ago.
Okay, then you don't. You can just keep going to use the name that you've used for lots of years.
Beautiful.
Thanks, Monica.
Thanks, Monica.
Just on names,
yes.
you could just change
Better
it.
than a number, though, isn't it?
Well, I think it is, yeah.
Okay.
It's not where I expected that conversation to go, Dave, but yeah.
Well, we have these lots of discussions with clients about whether or not I've moved house.
Yes.
Do I need to make a new will? Those
Right.
kinds of things.
Yes.
Yep. The names.
But names, you can just change your surname as and when you like, right?
Provided it's not for fraudulent purposes, you can use whatever name you like.
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. And there's no, I think people are under the impression you've got to go via deed poll and all this sort of stuff. I don't know if that's necessary.
No, but my difficulty will be I'm whiting and I want to change to brown.
Yeah.
I need a new driver's licence.
Right.
How do I prove that David Whiting is now David Brown? The answer will be I go to births, deaths and marriages, I get a new birth certificate in the name of Brown, and that then becomes my core document. So it's part of this government's desire to know who everybody is all the time.
Yeah.
Means that while you can adopt whatever name you like, getting formal documentation is much harder.
Okay. On a related theme, Andrew's called in from Melbourne. Hi, Andrew.
Hi, Ali. Hi, David. How are you?
Well,
The reason for the call, I wanted to do the right thing and considered donating blood. So I called Lifeblood under the Red Cross to find out whether I was eligible. And I was concerned because there was a particular medication that I took up to about 6 months ago that may preclude me. The phone operator said to actually assess that, I need to open up a case, which they did, and took a lot of personal and private information about my medical history and me as an individual. The ultimate conclusion was I couldn't donate for 2 years, but they then, so I can't at all, actually, sorry, not the 2 years, but now I'm in a situation where they will not delete my personal information. They didn't declare what their privacy policy rules were during the phone call, and I simply want it deleted. And they're quoting the fact that due to the state and territory health records legislation, they have to retain it for my safety and that of their recipients of donations.
So donations you were not going to make?
Donations I'm not going to make,
yes.
Correct.
Yeah.
So I want them to delete it because I don't really think it's a secure environment. Yeah, there are plenty of government organisations where places have been hacked and I just want my data removed. And
have you spoken? Look, it's a technical question on the Health Records Act and the Privacy Commissioner. I'm going to listen next week, Andrew. Wally's very keen for me to have homework, so let's call it homework, and I will give you a much better answer. Given that you were never a donor, I understand the need to keep health records, but it's not health records. While they're health records, in a sense, it's health records by someone from whom you've never sought health advice.
Correct.
Okay.
And I do have correspondence from them which indicates that they did accept the fact that I wasn't given policy information or anything like that. So they acknowledge their wrongdoing, but cannot say they can't delete the file.
Understood. Andrew, next week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Michael is in Rowville. Hi, Michael.
Hi there. My question is in relation to a power of attorney and the authority that it gives you. My understanding is that if you hold a power of attorney, you are effectively that person. Is that correct?
There are two types of powers of attorney, Michael. They might be in the same document, but they're technically two sets of rules. There's a financial power of attorney, and the shorthand way I describe that is that it's like giving you a checkbook and signing rights. But I still keep my checkbook and my signing rights. So you become that person's alter ego. There can be limits put on the power of attorney. So I could turn around and say, yes, you could sell my house, but you can't borrow money against it. You can't write a cheque for more than 10 grand, but assuming I still have a chequebook these days, but that's the alter ego, and that you can put limitations on it. And it might not start for a period of time, it might end. So there's a few things you can wrap around it. The other kind of power of attorney is called a personal power of attorney. And a personal power of attorney is, we used to call it guardianship. So there was a concept called an enduring guardian, and the shorthand way I describe that is that if you are my personal guardian, you would become my parent in circumstances where I couldn't make decisions about where I lived, who I played with, what work I did, what I wore, what I did during the day. You become the parent. But that really only operates in circumstances where I can't. Okay. So, for example, if you thought I was crook and was incapable of living alone and needed to go to an aged care facility, and you picked me up and drove me there and left me there, you could be kidnapping me. So while it's a nice concept, I'd like it a little bit clearer about when it starts.
Okay.
So, and if you were to visit publicadvocate.vic.gov.au, it's the Office of the Public Advocate. They have some great guides to help you. And there's also more information at thelawhandbook.net.au.
Oh, all right then.
And really, one of the things that you say in the power of attorney is that you understand what the rules are. So, Michael, you've now got to go and find out what the rules are, so you've got the understanding.
So I've got the full understanding.
Yeah, a better one anyway. No one's got a full one.
A clear understanding, yes. Yeah, and also, just very quickly, when my wife went through being a power of attorney for her mother, there were some institutions, it was financial institutions primarily, who they wanted to see the original power of attorney.
Yes.
And they had that authority, so like that they've kept a certified copy, but they also insisted on seeing the very original copy. Is that correct?
Under the Powers of Attorney Act, you are entitled to use the power of attorney with using just the certified copy. So quite often, I mean, I have these fights with banks from time to time. Assume there's a power of attorney that authorises Waleed and me as the attorneys, and Waleed goes to one, but joint and several, so we can act independently. And he wants to take the original to one bank, and I want to take it to another. There's this; they can't all be in the same place at the same time. So they should rely on a certified copy, but sometimes they ask you to produce the original. What gets worse, Michael, is when they ask you to produce the person you're giving the power of attorney, getting it from. And sometimes I say to them, so you want me to bring them in the trolley from the hospital? So, but again, they've got anti-money laundering rules that include a concept called Know Your Customer. So how do they? And their customer is the person who's given the power, not you. It's a mess.
So they can make up their own rules in relation.
Well, no, they're making up their rules in relation to the Know Your Customer principles in the anti-money laundering rules. So I had, for example, I got an administration order for VCAT for a lady who was in an aged care facility in the northern suburbs. She'd had a bank account for 50 years, but they'd never properly identified her. So part of me getting the power to use the administration order was to, in fact, satisfy the bank that their customer was who they thought she was.
Okay.
A mess.
Thanks, Michael. Naomi has called in from Ashburton. Hi, Naomi.
Hi, Waleed and David. My question is about my daughter's car. She just bought a new car. We live on a very busy street in Ashburton. Our neighbour hasn't lived there for 3 years. Are we allowed to park on his driveway?
What makes you think you've got the right to park in his driveway? You're not using your house, so I will. Is that the new system?
Well, I did wonder if it's been empty for 3 years. Okay, so the answer's no.
You have no right to park there. It doesn't mean that you mightn't. You could try and find out who they are and where they are, and ask for permission. And I would have thought, quite like somebody looking as if there's someone at the house.
Yeah, well, that's what we thought, but perhaps not in this case. All right, thank you.
Thanks, Naomi.
Well, that was quick.
Yeah.
Neil has called in from Berwick. Hi, Neil.
Hi, David. I've got a question on behalf of my son. On the 8th of June, he was driving to work on a rainy and a misty morning, and he actually drove over two large and wide potholes.
Yes.
And then it damaged his two right-hand side tires, and then he just couldn't drive, and it was just gone, basically the two tires. And therefore it had to be towed, and then tires had to be replaced, wheel balance, blah, blah. It costed him $1,200, which he never had, and he's on a casual worker, so he had to get it done straight away, otherwise he can't go to work. So I'm just wondering, he asked me whether, Dad, could I write to the council or the Vic Roads? Is there anyone whom I can write that I can get some consolation, reimbursement or whatever? Is there any...
Neil? No.
Yes.
No. Right. Now, if they dug the pothole, the answer is yes. But there's a piece of Victorian legislation called the Road Management Act, and they are only liable for the things they do badly. They're not liable for the things that simply deteriorate over time. I do a bit of driving on country roads, and I've found that there's any number of country roads that's just deteriorating, and you get all these signs, slow down to 40 or 50. And the answer is they have no responsibility. They have responsibility for the work they do badly. They don't have responsibility for failing to do work.
Right. It is an area, just to add to what I just said, it was an area of all this, road works, and they have said to slow down to 60, which he had slowed down to 60, so he's gone in again, per the legal limit. It was all these road works that's happening in the southeastern side of things, so still the answer is no,
Still the answer is no.
All right, no worries. Thank you very much, David.
I suppose the accountability is at the ballot box, right?
Yes, but you don't vote for Regional Roads Victoria or Vic Roads.
That is true. Mike is in Seddon. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Waleed, and hi, David. Thanks for taking my call. Mine's a little bit different from potholes. On Friday, I put my motorcycle in for a service in the city and was riding away in a lone bike, and I turned a corner and turned into... Well, there is a barrier separating the bicycle lane from the car lane.
Yes.
And it's a new installation, and there's about a 3-metre long piece of, like a road hump that's about 100 millimetres high.
They're long pieces of concrete bolted to the ground. No, okay.
Well, it's yellow. It might have been concrete. I don't know. But it was right in the path where you would merge from the bicycle lane into the main lane.
Yes.
I hit that at about a 45-degree angle, came off and did $3,000 worth of damage to the lone motorcycle.
Yes.
And my helmet and bruised and battered, but I'm alive and well, which is great. But the reason for calling is I wanted to do two things. I wanted to put together some evidence from people who cycle, from groups who have an interest in sort of the safety issue, and complain about this because I think it's a very dangerous installation on the road. So I wanted to know who the relevant authority would be to send this to. And then a second objective would be to see if there's any possibility of getting some sort of compensation for the costs.
The organisation responsible for the roads in the CBD is the City of Melbourne.
Yep.
And they will have gone through every consultation known to man before they put them in. I can see it's an issue for bicycles, so I'd be talking to Bicycle Victoria and see whether or not, because they have some political power, you could have a talk to them about whether there might be some changes possible. In terms of compensation, again, if you can prove they've done something wrong, which isn't the same as having done something that you've hit.
Yep.
So you've got to prove fault. You can prove the fault. Not negligence, but the fault is they've done something badly, you've got a claim, otherwise you don't.
So my planned approach was to try and get statements from people who cycle in the area, groups that might have already recognised this new type of installation as a safety or a safety risk, and try and get some documentation together from different groups to put it to then council.
My problem, Mike, is who are you going to talk to? You're going to...
I don't know.
No, it's council, but
Yep.
really I do think you want someone making the statement on your behalf rather than I'm a disgruntled individual from Seddon and I have a problem. You're going to need some clout to get some changes.
Well, I was very lucky because a lovely man came up and helped me up, followed me into the dealership where I gave him the bad news, and then said, I'm a cyclist, I have a legal background in safety, I have my own private legal practice, and I'd be prepared to put together a letter if you do all the grunt work and get the documentation.
Then, Mike, I think that's fantastic. My problem is I don't know what traction it will get you.
Well, the first is I'd like to see some sort of reconsideration of this crazy piece of barrier that...
Well, there are an incredible number of barriers have been put in the streets in the city over the last year or so, substantially to prevent people doing U-turns.
Yep.
So the problem is, of course, it means that it then becomes incredibly difficult to pass someone who's propped, and it's even a difficulty for their own garbage trucks being able to negotiate.
Yep.
So...
Yep. Okay, City
Thanks,
of Melbourne.
Mike.
And,
City of Melbourne.
Long term. Thanks a lot.
Thanks,
Bye.
Mike. I got a text just with a follow-up on your pothole piece of advice.
Yes.
So I'm wondering about this. The text says you need to lodge the complaint with council or Vic Roads as they need to show they've inspected the road in accordance with the road management plan. For example, if a road is listed for annual inspection, it was missed, you would have a claim. Does that ring a bell for you?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yes, because because it's their failure to run their management plan.
Right. There you go. We've just supplemented the advice. Danny is in Apollo Bay. Hi, Danny.
Hello.
Hi.
Go for it.
You're on,
I just
Danny.
have a question.
Yep.
Pardon?
You're on.
I just have a question. Is it mandatory to include a clause about GST in the Section 32 vendor statement?
No. The Section 32 is information about the property, and you wouldn't normally put GST material in the Section 32 statement. You would put it, if you're going to put it in at all, in the contract. Now, if it's an existing dwelling, then there is no GST in the sale. So if it's existing residential premises, they are GST inclusive. They're GST they're taxed they're input taxed, so a sale doesn't get GST on it. If they're new GST...
It was a commercial property, and I purchased it as a residential property.
No, you're changing the use. So if they're commercial properties, the question is whether the vendor is registered or required to be registered for GST. If
they were.
And the property, and you acquired the property empty?
Yes.
Then what you need to do is look at the particulars of sale page in the contract and see how GST is treated there. Under the heading of GST, it will say that the price is GST inclusive unless we tick one of these other boxes.
Yes, that's right.
And
I just wondered because the previous Section 32 had a clause in it about GST, and I thought that's strange because mine didn't.
Not normally in a Section 32 statement.
Well, there you go, Danny. Thank you very much for the call and for your patience. I know Danny called in a while ago. 1300 222 774. We are just about out of time. One text I just got says, Bicycle Victoria is now called Bicycle Network Victoria.
Thank you.
So, in case that's useful.
Oh, it's all useful, Waleed. You never know when you're going to need it.
All right. I reckon we might just be able to squeeze in Brian, who's called in from Flemington. Hi, Brian.
Good morning. My issue is a price match reneging from an organisation. I bought something online. I followed their procedure. They said do a screenshot of both prices and email it to us, which I did. This was just before Christmas. So I rang them after Christmas. So we've been busy. We can't read. I haven't read their emails. Blah blah blah. And then I just rang them about a month ago, and they said, "Oh, it's too late now." I'm just wondering if I pursue this. How can I do it? First of all I have is an invoice which I paid. That's the company.
Did you ultimately buy from them, Brian?
Yeah, I did. Yeah. And they're supposed to give me a credit, which I haven't.
And when are they supposed to do the price matching? At the time you buy or at some other time?
Well, I guess when I buy, when I bought it. Yeah.
So you bought it, and how long after you bought it did you tell them about the price? Yes.
I put it online and rang them. They said, this is what you do. And I gave a screenshot of their webpage and the webpage of the other company.
And how much money are we talking about, Brian?
Well, it's the principal. It's a $15.
Oh, okay, $15. Okay, all right.
And I always like when I hear that it's the principal that's involved.
Oh no, I love it. I just ask people for some money at that point.
Yeah, that's when you book a European holiday, isn't it?
I'm just being smart.
Yeah. Brian, I'm with you. Why don't you escalate it to the organisation and say, I did what I was required to do. It's now up to you to do what you're required to do. But the application fee at VCAT will be more than the $15.
It's just the principle.
Sorry, Waleed, I understand.
Brian, thank you very much for your call. Thank you very much to all our callers for the free legal advice segment. David Whiting, Melbourne solicitor, our correspondent for the 38th millennium in a row, I think
we started last century.
It's been a very, very long time.